Hello and welcome to the very first video of my new YouTube channel. My name's Emily and I am going to be using this channel to basically document the process of going from like an unknown, unpublished author to what I'm hoping is going to be a traditionally published author in the coming years, which sounds like really obnoxious to say, but I am making this channel to just keep myself accountable to my own dream. I think if I'm going to become a traditionally published author, I need to have the same sort of mindset that someone who is starting a business, someone who is pursuing pretty much any other career choice that seems kind of risky. I need to have the same sort of mindset in the sense that I need to believe it's possible and I need to act on it as if it's a realistic, possible dream. And I'm just so frustrated with people, especially people who call themselves my friends. These are not my closest friends, by the way, but there are just people in my life who have directly said to me, this is not a realistic dream or goal, that to become a traditionally published author, you have to be a bit crazy to even try. And I'm just kind of sick of that mindset. So this channel is going to be me documenting pretty much the process of applying to agents, finishing editing my novel, and hopefully the entire publishing journey. I know it's going to be hard. I know that it's going to come with a lot of rejection. I know that my own belief in myself is probably going to take a few hits, but I ultimately believe in myself. I'm choosing to believe in myself. So, quick little introduction in terms of where I am in the process right now. Today it is the 23rd of February, so we're right at the end of February. I've been thinking about this fantasy YA novel that I've been writing since I was in high school. The idea has kind of been bubbling around in my head for a very long time, but I only really started working on it when I was doing my bachelor degree and I was doing an exchange semester at UBC in Canada where I was taking some creative writing courses. And that's where I drafted the very first chapter. This was back in like 2019. After I finished my master's degree, I started working in the Netherlands, which is where I live. And I was kind of very slowly writing this book alongside working. By the end of 2023, I had about 60,000 words, which I had slowly been writing alongside studying and alongside my first corporate job. But in 2024, I had a burnout and basically I didn't work on the book at all for the entirety of 2024. And then in February 2025, I fully quit my corporate job and decided to pursue writing full-time, at least initially. So I spent the first 3 months of unemployment just working on this novel and I made a lot of progress, but I couldn't live on my savings forever. So in July 2025, I got a part-time retail job, which I'm still doing, and it just helps me and my husband to pay the bills. And then the days that I'm not working in the shop, I'm working on my novel. So by the end of 2025, I had fully finished my first draft. I had finished about 3 rounds of edits, which included plot editing and line editing. And then on December 10th, I sent the draft as it was to 4 beta readers. So I did not touch the book for 2 solid months. December and January, I just let myself totally rest and have space from the book. And now in February, I've picked it up again and I've been working on incorporating some of the feedback from the beta readers and also just looking at the draft with fresh eyes and noticing new things for myself and slowly getting it ready to that final stage and hopefully getting it ready to submit to agents before the summer of 2026. So that is my hope, that's my goal. for this book, but let's see how the timeline goes in reality, because you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, that's my goal at this point. This is actually not the first novel that I've written. If you are confused about my accent, like most people that I meet are, I am from South Africa, but because I spent 3 years of my childhood in the UK and I'm married to someone from El Salvador who speaks American English as a second language, all of those elements have kind of resulted in this weird accent that I have. But hopefully I sound primarily South African because that's where I'm from. And that's also where I wrote my first novel when I was 15 years old. I wrote, I think it was about 70,000 words. I wrote a middle grade fantasy novel and I had a great time writing it. It was not a good book, but I learned a lot from the experience. At the time, I didn't fully understand how the publishing industry worked, and I didn't really have the resources to learn more about it. I feel like back then this industry was even more opaque, and living in a small town in South Africa, it's like not a place where you're gonna be meeting people who are in that industry. So I submitted the book to publishers that did not require an agent, and I really didn't even know anything about looking for literary agents. And I ended up publishing it through what I now understand was really a vanity publisher, which is where they take your money to publish it and they publish it for you. But I guess it's sort of like indie publishing, except you're not doing it totally by yourself. But I was responsible for the marketing and the distribution and like a whole bunch of things. Long story short, that book did not go well, and I'm kind of glad that it didn't go well because it was, like I said, not well written. My writing skills were so cringy back then, but I did learn a lot, and I'm proud of myself for pushing myself and, you know, publishing a book, even if it was essentially self-publishing at 16. So that was a whole experience, and I guess it just shows that this is a dream I've had for a very long time. It's something that I do take quite seriously. It's not just like a hobby or something I've thought up in the last couple months or years. It's something that I've just always wanted to do. But yeah, after that whole experience, I moved to the Netherlands to do my bachelor degree. I really didn't plan on staying in the Netherlands. It just kind of ended up happening because this is where I met my husband. And if you've ever tried to live in a foreign country, especially if you have a really weak passport, you will know how much fight it takes to stay in a country, especially if it's a developed or a wealthy country. We poured so much of our energy and so much of our free time just into being able to stay in this country. Not that I have anything against South Africa. I'm really proud to come from South Africa, and I wasn't running away from it, and I would actually be open to living there again at some point in my life. But at the time, for a number of reasons, at the time we really needed to stay in the Netherlands. And yeah, so a lot of my energy went into that. I just wasn't able to fully pour myself into creative endeavors like writing this book. So when my husband became a Dutch citizen in 2025, that really changed the game for us. And it was the first time where it was actually on the table and it was actually a possibility for me to quit my job and not have to worry about visas. So I just knew that if I didn't do that now, if I didn't do that in 2025, you know, before we have kids and all of this stuff, I just knew that I was never going to do it. So I'm really proud of myself for taking that step, and I'm also really grateful to have a husband who supports my dreams. And if this book does get published, he's the first, you know, one of the first people I'm going to thank, because it just wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't married to someone who supported me the way that my husband does. But I also just want to point out that, you know, I think we often compare our writing journeys to people who have completely different obstacles in life to us. And I'm 28 now. I'm going to be turning 29 this coming April. And it's really easy to kind of feel like, you know, I should have started my writing career properly by now. I compare myself a lot to authors who, you know, published their first book early on in their 20s, and they're just, you know, they're a decade into their careers already, and they're very established. And I have to kind of remind myself that none of those people had to fight for citizenship in a different country for whatever reason. Those people had, you know, family and support systems that allowed them to take a year off after they studied to write, or however it was that they wrote. And I'm not trying to diminish anyone's writing journey, because writing a book is hard no matter what your journey looks like. But I think I've had to remind myself to just be kind and gentle to myself and not compare myself to other people, because at the end of the day, we all have different things on our plate. And I'm just really grateful that I came to a point in my life where I was able to prioritize the book and not have to worry about visas and other things. So yeah, it doesn't mean it's been easy. We've had to make a lot of sacrifices in terms of our finances and our ability to travel and see our family. That has been really, really hard, to not be able to, you know, travel twice a year, go to El Salvador, go to South Africa, and to Singapore, because I also have, my parents live in Singapore. So it's been difficult to be so cut off and isolated and just not be able to afford to go and see them. But I know that I just couldn't live with myself if I never truly gave this writing career a proper shot. So I don't regret at all the decision I've made, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. So I guess I'm starting this channel to document this journey for myself, so that at some point I can look back on this journey and see how far I've come and what it took to get there. But I also want to share this journey with you. If you're writing a book, if you're in the query trenches, wherever you are in that process, maybe watching someone go through the pain of it alongside you will give you some sort of encouragement. So feel free to use my pain and torture and difficulties as a comfort to your own journey, because I know that it's going to be a journey that includes a lot of rejection. I know it's going to be, a difficult and long process, and it's not going to happen overnight. And maybe it's not even going to happen with this book. Maybe I'm going to have to write a different book before someone will, sign a contract with me. But that's okay, because I will keep doing this for however long it takes. And in the meantime, we can enjoy the ride together. So I'm going to be as open and honest as I possibly can be. I'm not going to share, obviously, details of the literary agents that I apply to, but I do want to share like numbers with you. So the number of agents that I apply to, how many of them are interested, how many of them aren't. Every time I get a yes or a no, I will be letting you know. I would also like to use this channel to analyze books in a way where authors and myself can kind of learn things from books. So not necessarily book reviews, but just analyzing what a book does well that we can learn from and how we can learn from it. And also just discussions about how to handle things as a writer, how to handle the mental aspect and the mental sort of positioning that I am going to be taking, and that I feel like any writer should be taking if we want to be successful in this, and hopefully we'll have some interesting discussions along the way as well. Look, I don't know if this book is going to get an agent or not. I don't know if I'm going to get an agent in 2026 or in 2046. I don't know. What I do know is that I am going to be pursuing it really, really hard in 2026, and I really see this as like the year that Emily gets a literary agent. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. But whatever happens, I want to take this seriously. I'm choosing to believe in myself. I'm choosing to visualize getting an agent and getting a publisher and really seeing that for myself. Whether it looks delusional to other people or not, I really don't care. So I'm gonna do the thing that YouTubers do, which is to ask that you give this video a thumbs up and you subscribe if you want to join me on this journey. And let me know in the comments if you're also writing a book or where you are in your writing journey. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!